Okay. This is actually a depiction of music in a way that's not notation like we use it when we write music down. And it's made for people that are learning how to listen for music. And it's kind of a nice little thing. It's the overture to The Marriage of Figaro, which is the opera that I took my students to this week. And the overture is the beginning of the opera. So it's typically performed by the orchestra and not by any performers. The overture also, like sometimes they will have the curtain closed on stage so that you can't even see the stage while the overture is playing. Sometimes, however, they will have something going on that is kind of setting up the show, but there is no singing going on for the opera. But this gives you a really nice kind of depiction of what the music does. And at some point in this little section, it's going to show the instruments that are actually being played, so that like little floaty instruments that float above the lines here to show you, hey, this is the violin part playing, or this is the oboe playing, or the bassoon playing. And you'll see when it pops up to just have you listen more carefully to what instrument is actually playing these melodies. This symbol here, which is over to the far left underneath the A, can you guys see my cursor? Can you see my pointer?
Yes.
Okay, so that symbol is a repeat symbol, and that means to repeat back to a specific area. You'll see it here in the middle of the screen and then down in the lower third of the screen. And so that means that they're going to repeat part of their music. Also, you can see the treble clef here, and I think this is supposed to depict a bass clef. I'm not sure. It's not very clear there. But anyway, let's listen to this. This is the overture to The Marriage of Figaro by Mozart.
Le Nozze di Figaro, The Marriage of Figaro, Overture by Mozart.
See the flute above it? There's the violin. It's going to repeat. That's a bassoon sound. is the um, depiction of how the music sounds and gives you a little idea of how to listen for the music. I love how they put in the instruments throughout the overture to allow you guys to say, "Oh, I hear a different instrument that came in here." And so, especially, I don't know if you noticed, the bassoon is kind of a honky sounding instrument. It's very unique in the musical instruments. But the instruments that they showed down here are the ones that are involved in the overture. So you have the flute, you have the oboe, you have the bassoon, and then you have the violin, the viola, the cello, the bass, and then the timpani, and that's the drums that you hear during that overture. The timpani is usually a set of drums, so it's not just one drum. It's usually two or three, depending on how they need to use the drums. And the timpani is pitched, so it means that it has pedals on it, and you can actually stretch the top of the drum or the drum head and actually change the pitch of the drum in the middle of the song if you need to. So if you have three timpani set up, you have the potential of setting up many notes, because you can change three notes at the same time and have them ready if the key changes, or if the song it switches to some kind of different sounding song like minor or major. You can switch the timpani drums in the middle of the song, or between songs or something. Anybody having questions? Sorry. Um, like, do I have a timpani at home and I can play it? No. I think if you had enough timpani set up, you could play a whole song on it. Although I'm not sure anybody would want to hear it, but it's usually the timpani. Its function is to give um, support to the base of the structure of the harmony. So that would be the bottom note of the structure of the harmony. So much like a bass. You have your violin, viola, cello, bass. The bass is the lowest instrument. Many times, the bass will be playing the same notes as the timpani to add more structure to that foundational concept of harmony. So that's one of the purposes of the timpani. You usually get the do and the so, or the saw and the pa. You would usually get those notes, and that's how timpani are usually tuned. Um, so yeah, that's that. They usually, because those are the really important notes in Western music as well. Is the do and the so. So they strengthen that structure of the harmonies. So yeah. Any other? Um, I'm not I'm not exactly sure, but I've heard them move them a lot. So typically they push the pedals down. I would venture to say it's probably a fifth, five notes up. If you include the little half steps in between, it would be like da 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 da. Probably there. Um, that's probably as far as they would go, because the other drum would be a smaller headed drum to then pick up the higher pitches going forward from there. So they're not all the same sized drum heads. There would be a smaller drum, a medium sized drum, and a large drum, so that they could pick up all pitches in a scale, maybe. Okay. Yes, it's a wind instrument, and it has. I have another video that is going to show you guys, and I think you'll appreciate this. There is a. Let me unshare screen just because I don't want to. Am I sharing screen right now, or is it?
Yeah, we can see the screen. Yeah, I actually have a question on the screen. Maybe we can come back.
Yeah. You want to talk about this one?
Yeah, just have a quick question on this. Is this more as a visual aid to the listener? Because this is not formal notes that anybody can actually follow and play along, right?
Exactly.
This is just for a visual aid to the user to the listener, is it? To get a sense of
Yes.
where the music is
Exactly.
going? Okay.
Yes, and typically, so Austin Lyric Opera or Austin Opera, which is what it's called now, um, somebody in Austin Opera in their education program set this up, set this little video up that shows, not the notes, but actually kind of what you're listening to. And I think it's kind of a brilliant way to show people, listen for this. Do you notice the notes moving up and down? Do you notice the notes going straight up? Do you notice the articulation of dum, dum, as they showed some of the big chords were the little flowers that were falling off the vines, helping
Hmm.
you go, the little cursor that they created. That Do you notice the articulated notes? And I think it's really good for people who have never looked at music before to start listening to music, or kids, of course, in an educational setting that are just learning, to listen to music. Adults who have never been to the opera, this is a good um, introduction to what they might be listening to for the evening. And Austin Opera has created a few of these different ones. So if you type in Marriage of Figaro, as you can see over here can you guys see my screen right now? Okay, so over here on the right, there are some other ones that have been created by Austin Opera that show different different operas that they do, but it's like a listening guide to let you kind of notice different instruments and stuff. So I think that would be a really good thread over here to follow if you're really trying to start listening to specific instruments and how it fits in the harmony of the creation or the composition that the composer has made. So anyway, yeah, that's it is not. Excuse me. It is not regular notation, and it's
Yeah.
not something that I can't create this because I can't. I mean, I could probably sit down and do it if I had some software that would allow me to do this and draw the little picture and stuff like that. I think I could probably do it, but it would take a long time to do it. I'm glad somebody else did it. So I didn't have to do that for my students before we went. But this is how I would usually, typically, if I didn't have this, I would stop the music along the way and say, listen for this, instrument here. Do you hear this? But I'm glad that they created these for listening. And they have some of the most famous operas here listed. I think I've played this piece over here, the Nessun Dorma, that is from Turandot. I think I've played that for you guys before, showing you one of our most famous Western classical and opera singers, Luciano Pavarotti. He's deceased, but he is still to this day considered probably the best tenor, which is the higher voiced singer that's ever been around. I mean, some people would maybe argue a couple other singers, but he's definitely going to be in the top three of anybody's list. And so I've had my students listen to him before, but having a visual representation of what that song sounds like with this kind of thing is really helpful, because the kids can then go, oh, I hear that, I see what it's doing, I hear what's going on. So of course I'm coming from a place of having taught children since 1989, so that's, I'm looking for things that are easy for them to understand, and this really does make it easy. Any other questions before we go on? Because I have something really cool that'll show you some instruments that maybe you haven't seen before or heard before.